Here's an unusual thought. Imagine that breath was a controlled substance. It was tightly regulated, and you perhaps had to get a prescription for it, or you had to go on the black market to get breath. It's strange to think. Imagine if you had to go out in the morning and it was your one chance to get some breath. You go out on your porch and you just suck in as much air as you can, and you kind of had to hold your breath for the rest of the day. And breath was a constant, ongoing difficulty or trouble for you. And there was competition for breath. And if you breathed too much, other people would get less breath. So there were large government agencies given the power to try to distribute breath evenly. Whew! Aren't we glad that that isn't the case? When you think about it, breath is the greatest intoxicant. It's the greatest animating substance. It's the most essential substance and element of life. And each and every one of us has absolutely perfect, unlimited access to it. We don't have to go out in the morning and suck in a bunch of air and then try to use that amount for the rest of the day. Every single time we breathe, we can have as much as we want. And most of us have proven it somewhere between 400 and 500 million times in our life. So the greatest intoxicant, the greatest animating force, the greatest power, the greatest spirit that we all use to shape and mold and design and live and create and express our life is available to us in infinite supply. We don't have to go to the oxygen store and buy a bunch of tanks of it and then hide and hoard it in our attic or in our basement. We don't have to get a bunch of extra oxygen in case society collapses and put it down there with the dried food. As much air as you want all the time, and yet people don't use it. They don't realize it. They don't put it to use. They don't use this great creative source. The beautiful thing about breath is that you can only breathe for yourself. You cannot breathe for somebody else. And yet, don't we sometimes try to do that? Don't we try to get somebody who's sad or sick or depressed or down or living in scarcity or somehow not living their best life? We try to get them, we try to enliven them, we try to animate them, we try to inspire them. And of course, the word inspire comes from the same root word as aspire and inspire and respire. We try to breathe for other people when we can only breathe for ourselves. And yet we have a hard enough time breathing for ourselves when the greatest animating life force, prana, life force, is infinitely and abundantly available in the breath. In other words, we all have sails, and we could put up these great sails and let them be filled with great volumes of breath, of air, of wind blowing into us, moving us forward into ever more grand, glorious lives. Every day could be a breath of fresh air. And many people are out in the world with their sails dead in the water, not even moving. Yet you can have all the breath you want. So this day, let's remember that every moment of now is also corresponds with our breath. There is no more powerful reminding activity to bring us into the present moment. Well, what's the thing about the present moment? Now is the moment of salvation. Now is the moment of truth. Now is the moment of our next breath. And in every conscious breath, we can remember that within the breath is hidden for most, but available to those who remember, the absolute force of life, the animating prana, chi, mojo, Holy Spirit. And by breathing in this way, we can build up, how shall we say, we can build up a great momentum of energy and life. And I'll leave you with this analogy. The material analogy for someone who doesn't use their breath wisely yet, hasn't learned how, it hasn't occurred to them, is sort of like a potter's clay the thing they put the clay on to spin. You take a big clump of clay and you put it on the potter's wheel, except you don't spin it. You don't get it moving. And then try to shape that. Try to put the little implements that shape and move the entire clay. And you kind of get the idea of a life that's stuck and stagnant, very material, very set in its ways. But every time we breathe, breathe consciously, breathe fully, breathe with aliveness, breathe with appreciation, gratitude, and remembrance, we're building up the momentum of the clay of our life. And you know what it looks like when a potter's wheel is going very fast and the very skilled potter begins to use the slightest little movement of their finger or a little device or a little implement, and the slightest movement can make the whole shape of the clay, and in our case, our own lives, begin to shape into ever more beautiful things. In any given moment, we can apply or withdraw our energy and effort. We can add things to our life. We can add shape. We can detract with the slightest little movement because we are literally breathing it into place. This is the difference between the potter's wheel going very fast, the person who is spiritually adept and connected, versus the material-minded person who is stuck and stagnant with a large lump of clay and doesn't know how to use their breath yet. And also, do remember today, you can't breathe for anybody else. Breathe fully, freely, joyfully, knowing you can have as much as you want. You're not taking anybody else's air. There need be no large agency to distribute air evenly amongst us. That will never work, and that's the case with every resource. Have a beautiful day.